America's unveiling of the world's first self-powered car marked a moment that felt almost unreal, a technological leap that even experts didn't see coming. For years, electric vehicles were celebrated as the future, yet they carried one frustrating limitation: dependence on charging stations and battery capacity. No matter how advanced the batteries became, no matter how fast the chargers worked, the reality was simple: energy had to come from somewhere else. That all changed the day the US introduced a car that could generate its own power. It was not a small upgrade, it was the birth of a completely new energy era. The idea of a self-sustaining vehicle had been discussed for decades, but it always seemed like a distant dream, a concept too ambitious for real-world execution. Then suddenly, America made it happen, shocking the entire automotive world. Engineers, scientists, and car enthusiasts found themselves witnessing history unfold before their eyes. The self-powered car was more than a mechanical innovation, it was a declaration of independence from traditional energy systems. Using a combination of advanced electromagnetic conversion, wireless energy capture, and regenerative motion systems, the car effectively created a closed loop of energy. Every movement produced energy that was instantly recaptured and reused. It wasn't perpetual motion in the mythical sense, it was an efficient, intelligent system designed to minimize energy loss to nearly zero. This made the car capable of traveling for thousands of miles without a single stop to recharge. The symbolism of that achievement struck deep. No longer would travel be limited by fuel prices, charging availability, or the size of a lithium battery pack. America had taken mobility to a level that no other nation had reached. For years, nations like China had dominated the electric vehicle market, focusing on battery production, affordability, and infrastructure expansion. But the American breakthrough didn't just compete with that, it bypassed it completely. Instead of building a better battery, America built a car that didn't need one. This shift in direction redefined the conversation about energy and transportation. What once required massive industrial supply chains could now be achieved through compact, intelligent systems that lived within the car itself. Environmentalists hailed it as a revolution that could drastically cut carbon emissions and eliminate battery waste. Economists saw it as a disruption that could shake global oil markets. For everyday people, it meant the freedom to travel anywhere without worrying about running out of power. That emotional connection, the idea of unlimited motion, made this innovation not just practical but profoundly inspiring. As the news spread, it sparked curiosity and debate. Was it safe? Was it scalable? Could this really be the end of the charging era? Every question only amplified the sense of wonder surrounding the invention. American engineers held live demonstrations, showing vehicles running continuously for hours without decline in performance. The results were undeniable. Something revolutionary had happened, not in a lab, not as a theory, but on the open road. The first self-powered car didn't just symbolize technological progress, it represented a nation's return to leadership in innovation. It was proof that when ambition meets creativity, the impossible can become the new normal. The technology behind the self-powered car represents a monumental leap in human understanding of energy generation and efficiency. For over a century, vehicles have relied on stored or supplied energy, whether in the form of gasoline, diesel, or batteries. Each required an external source, something that had to be replenished. The idea that a car could power itself sounded like fantasy, but through the fusion of multiple scientific disciplines, American engineers turned that fantasy into a functioning reality. At the heart of this innovation is a process that merges electromagnetic induction, kinetic energy recovery, and ambient energy harvesting into a unified system. Every component of the car, from the tires to the drivetrain, becomes part of an energy ecosystem that feeds itself continuously while in motion. As the car accelerates, brakes, or even idles, the system captures lost energy and repurposes it in real time, reducing waste to almost nothing. This concept doesn't violate the laws of physics, it uses them more intelligently than ever before. Instead of relying solely on a single battery or a fuel cell, the self-powered car operates as a smart energy network. Advanced converters turn mechanical motion into usable electricity, while nano-coating technologies reduce friction and improve conductivity. The car's body even acts as a receiver for ambient electromagnetic waves, pulling in small amounts of energy from the environment to keep the onboard systems active. Each of these innovations already existed in isolation, but the true genius came from combining them seamlessly into one system. The result is a vehicle that continuously regenerates the power it consumes, achieving what engineers once called energy equilibrium. It's not infinite energy, but it's an almost perfect balance between consumption and recovery. The impact of such a design extends far beyond engineering. It represents a change in how humanity perceives energy itself. For decades, energy has been seen as a commodity, something extracted, sold, stored, and rationed. But the self-powered car challenges that belief. It suggests that energy can be a living, circulating element that flows naturally through systems, rather than something we constantly have to produce and replace. This shift in perception has implications for every sector, from manufacturing to urban planning. It hints at a world where buildings, machines, and vehicles all operate with self-sustaining systems, minimizing external energy needs and reducing global dependence on finite resources. Engineers describe the system as a closed-loop cycle enhanced by artificial intelligence. Sensors embedded throughout the car analyze driving patterns, road conditions, and even weather data to optimize energy regeneration. If the road ahead is uphill, the system pre-adjusts torque and energy flow to maintain efficiency. During braking, every ounce of kinetic energy is captured, converted, and stored in microcapacitors rather than wasted as heat. Even the car's exterior panels, equipped with energy-absorbing materials, play a role in capturing solar and electromagnetic radiation. All these small details combine to form a network of constant energy motion, a loop that keeps the car alive indefinitely. This breakthrough doesn't just solve a transportation problem, it introduces a new era of design philosophy, machines that think, react, and sustain themselves. It opens doors to limitless exploration and innovation. By breaking the dependence on charging grids and fossil fuels, America's self-powered car sets a new standard for what human ingenuity can achieve when the focus shifts from consumption to regeneration. China's reaction to America's unveiling of the self-powered car was nothing short of astonishment. For years, China had proudly led the global electric vehicle revolution, dominating not only battery production but also EV exports and charging infrastructure. The country invested billions in lithium mining, gigafactories, and electric car startups, establishing itself as the beating heart of the world's clean transportation movement. Then suddenly, America introduced a technology that seemed to bypass everything China had built its dominance upon. The news spread rapidly across Chinese media and engineering circles, sparking disbelief, skepticism, and curiosity all at once. Could the United States really have achieved something that defied conventional engineering limits? China's experts immediately began analyzing the available data, videos, and test results, trying to uncover how such a leap was possible. What they found challenged the very foundation of their long-standing EV strategy. For decades, China's EV industry had been laser-focused on battery innovation, improving range, reducing cost, and accelerating charge times. The philosophy was simple: whoever controlled the battery supply chain controlled the future of mobility. That approach made China an unmatched powerhouse, supplying the majority of the world's lithium-ion batteries. Yet America's new self-powered technology didn't rely on large battery packs at all. It operated on continuous energy regeneration, which rendered external charging infrastructure practically obsolete. This meant that all the progress China had made in building nationwide charging networks and battery supply systems might suddenly lose relevance. The self-powered car concept represented a disruptive shift, not a gradual improvement, and that's what stunned Chinese engineers the most. It wasn't an evolution of their ideas, it was a completely different path that threatened to rewrite the rules of the game. In China's innovation centers like Shenzhen and Shanghai, discussions quickly turned into debates. Some experts labeled the American breakthrough as premature or exaggerated, insisting that it could not be scaled efficiently. Others, however, acknowledged that even if the technology was in its early stages, it posed a serious challenge to China's technological edge. Behind closed doors, research teams began investigating similar concepts, attempting to reverse engineer the principle of energy equilibrium. Chinese state media cautiously covered the development, often emphasizing national resilience and the need for intensified domestic innovation. Yet beneath that patriotic narrative, there was a sense of unease. For years, China had outpaced competitors through rapid adaptation, but this new form of self-sustaining mobility was something entirely unfamiliar. It demanded a rethinking of everything, from material science and energy policy to national investment priorities. Internationally, analysts began calling the situation the technological shock of the decade. The United States, once seen as lagging behind in EV manufacturing, suddenly appeared to be years ahead in next-generation energy systems. That shift didn't just affect automotive markets, it touched geopolitics. China's economic influence in the clean energy race had been a key component of its global strategy, and now America's innovation threatened to undercut it. Chinese think tanks began calling for massive reinvestment in alternative energy research and tighter collaboration between government and private tech firms to close the gap. Still, even with the country's unmatched production capacity, there was an acknowledgement that this kind of innovation required more than factories. It demanded fresh imagination. The shockwave that began in America had reached Beijing, not just as a technological wake-up call, but as a reminder that no nation can remain unchallenged in the pursuit of progress. The introduction of a car that never needs to stop for fuel or charging is not just a technical accomplishment, it's a complete redefinition of what freedom on the road means. For over a century, transportation has been limited by one constant: the need to refuel or recharge. Whether it was stopping at a gas station or plugging into a charging port, energy dependency dictated how far a person could travel. With the arrival of self-powered cars, that limitation dissolves. Imagine setting out on a journey across an entire continent without once worrying about energy levels, waiting in lines at charging stations, or calculating mileage. This innovation liberates drivers from the invisible chains that have always tied them to external power sources. It transforms travel into something pure, continuous, uninterrupted motion powered entirely by the car itself. For many, this marks the first time the concept of infinite drive feels tangible, not theoretical. The implications of freedom from charging go far beyond convenience. It's about independence from global energy systems that have controlled economies and shaped international relations for decades. Traditional fuel-based transportation relied on oil, a finite resource that gave rise to wars, political alliances, and economic manipulation. Electric vehicles were meant to free the world from that, but they introduced a new dependency: the battery. Lithium, cobalt, and nickel became the new oil, controlled by a few powerful nations. Now, with a vehicle capable of self-generation, the dependence shifts again, this time toward autonomy. The self-powered car means that each individual, each nation, and each driver can harness their own source of mobility without relying on any external infrastructure. It is the ultimate expression of self-sufficiency, one that could eventually reshape not just travel but also geopolitics and trade. On a practical level, this technology opens doors that humanity had barely imagined before. Long-distance logistics could transform overnight, with trucks and cargo fleets traveling thousands of miles non-stop, reducing delivery times and cutting operational costs to a fraction. Remote communities that struggle with energy access could gain vehicles that operate without fuel supply chains. Disaster zones, military operations, and humanitarian missions could all benefit from machines that never run out of power. The impact on the environment would also be massive. No more emissions, no more disposable battery waste, and no more strain on national power grids. Self-powered cars could help restore balance between technological advancement and ecological preservation, finally aligning human progress with sustainability instead of opposition. The emotional and psychological aspect of this freedom is just as powerful as the technical one. For decades, people have accepted limitations as part of travel. Range anxiety, maintenance schedules, and rising fuel prices were unavoidable realities. But when you remove those barriers, driving becomes a different experience altogether. It becomes a symbol of endless exploration and human potential. The ability to move without restriction taps into something deeply primal: the desire to roam, discover, and evolve. The moment you realize your car doesn't need energy from anyone else, that it's alive in its own cycle of power, the very idea of ownership changes. You're not just driving a machine, you're controlling a self-sustaining entity, a partner in motion that embodies independence. This is more than freedom of movement, it's freedom from limitation itself, the kind of freedom humanity has been chasing since the first wheel turned. The launch of America's self-powered car didn't just change transportation, it reshaped global perceptions of innovation and leadership. For decades, the U.S. had been viewed as the birthplace of great ideas, but not always the finisher in execution. Countries like China, Japan, and Germany had long surpassed America in manufacturing efficiency, battery technology, and large-scale electric vehicle production. But with this breakthrough, the United States reclaimed the very thing that once defined it: the spirit of bold, fearless innovation. The development of the self-powered car proved that when ambition meets creativity, boundaries disappear. It was not just about building a new kind of vehicle, it was about restoring the belief that American ingenuity can still lead the world into the next era of human progress. This technological triumph rekindled a sense of national pride that had been missing for years. Engineers, scientists, and inventors across the country saw it as proof that the American innovation engine was far from slowing down. The car's creation brought together experts in artificial intelligence, electromagnetism, and renewable energy, a collaboration that reminded the world why the US has always been a hub for cross-disciplinary breakthroughs. This wasn't a project born from competition alone, it was born from vision. The vision of a nation determined to solve problems differently rather than just improve on existing solutions. Where other countries focused on enhancing battery capacity, the US asked a different question: what if we didn't need to charge at all? That question changed everything. The redefinition of global innovation became clear when international companies and research institutions started paying attention. Conferences and summits that once centered around battery evolution began to pivot toward self-sustaining systems. Investors redirected funds toward American startups experimenting with similar regenerative technologies. The global innovation race, once measured in how fast or long a car could run on stored energy, now shifted toward how efficiently it could produce its own. This shift gave the United States a massive advantage, not just technologically, but strategically. It attracted talent from around the world, eager to be part of what many began calling the Second Industrial Awakening. The effects rippled into policy and industry as well. Governments began to reconsider their investments in traditional EV infrastructure, questioning whether charging networks would still matter a decade from now. Auto manufacturers faced the challenge of adapting or becoming obsolete, prompting an international wave of collaboration and reinvention. American automakers, once struggling to compete with foreign EV brands, suddenly found themselves ahead in a market that didn't even exist a year ago. It was a reset button on global competition, and the US pressed it first. But beyond economics and technology, this breakthrough redefined innovation itself. It reminded the world that true progress is not about iteration but about imagination, the courage to step away from convention and dare the impossible. The self-powered car became a metaphor for American resilience and creative defiance. It wasn't just an advancement in mobility. It was a declaration that innovation belongs to those who refuse to follow the blueprint and instead choose to rewrite it. In that moment, the United States didn't just create a new technology, it reignited the world's belief in what innovation really means. The emergence of self-powered vehicles marks the beginning of a revolution that extends far beyond transportation. It signals a new age in which energy no longer needs to be extracted, stored, or rationed in traditional ways. The launch of America's self-powered car is more than a technological event. It's a societal shift. When a car can power itself indefinitely, it challenges everything from business models to environmental strategies. The oil industry, the battery market, and even electric utility companies now face the reality of an approaching transformation that could render many of their operations obsolete. Humanity has stepped into a chapter where energy independence is not a distant dream but a tangible achievement. This is the point where the future ceases to be a projection and becomes a lived reality, and that realization carries waves of consequence across the globe. The revolution has started not with fanfare, but with functionality. The self-powered car quietly represents a new mindset, one where sustainability is no longer an afterthought but the default. The elimination of charging and refueling not only reduces carbon footprints, but also dismantles entire systems built on scarcity. For the first time, technology has created a model of abundance, energy generated and regenerated in a continuous cycle. This paradigm shift doesn't just improve efficiency, it questions the very foundation of industrial energy consumption. Cities could soon adapt to a world where vehicles no longer need massive charging grids, freeing infrastructure for new forms of innovation. Highways might evolve into intelligent networks that support and interact with these cars, optimizing energy flow across fleets rather than individual vehicles. This revolution extends deeply into economic structures as well. Markets built on oil extraction, refining, and battery mining could see rapid decline, while new industries focused on energy capture materials, regenerative design, and AI-driven energy management will rise. The transition may not be smooth. Powerful sectors rarely give up control easily, but history shows that once a superior technology takes hold, resistance only delays the inevitable. The self-powered car represents that inevitability. It sets in motion a cascade effect, inspiring researchers in aviation, maritime transport, and construction to explore similar self-sustaining technologies. The goal is no longer just to build machines that move, but machines that live, systems capable of producing what they consume. This evolution moves humanity closer to a world that thrives in balance with nature rather than in opposition to it. On a human level, this revolution changes how people think about progress. Innovation has often been tied to convenience, but now it becomes about coexistence, finding harmony between technology and the environment. The self-powered car is a symbol of that harmony. It represents the intelligence of human design finally working in rhythm with natural forces instead of exhausting them. As more countries begin to adopt or replicate this technology, the global focus will shift from competition to adaptation. Energy independence will no longer belong to nations with the most resources, but to those with the most creativity. What began as a breakthrough in American engineering is rapidly becoming a global movement. The revolution of self-powered mobility is here, and it's rewriting the rules of civilization, quietly, efficiently, and irreversibly.